Okay, looks like things have slowed down a little bit, and so we'll go ahead and get started because we know you have many things to do this evening. And I'm sure you're anxious to hear our updated plans and to learn a little more about our next steps to get our West Bloomfield High School students back in person instruction. So, welcome. We are going to spend some time tonight. I'm going to introduce our panelists and talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing this evening. I'm Deanna Barish. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning. Tonight, as part of our panel, I'm joined by Mr. Eric Pace, Principal, Mr. Jamie Glynns, Assistant Principal, Dr. Stephanie Griffin, Assistant Principal, Mrs. Susie Eisner, Assistant Principal, and Mrs. Lynn Swearhone, our Mental Health Specialist. So we have quite all of us here today in order to provide this important update for you and to get ready to send your high school students back to us in just a couple weeks. I'm going to just take just 2 short minutes to really thank this high school administrative team for their extremely hard work this last couple days. You know, we presented to the board on Monday night a plan that really was not as comprehensive as the one that you're going to see tonight. And that really, I have to give a lot of kudos to this entire administrative team who listened to our parents, who listened to our board members, who listened to our community and our staff, and the concerns that they raised about returning to learn in person at West Bloomfield High School. And within just minutes after the board meeting ended, very late on Monday evening, they were in touch, and we scheduled a time to meet on Tuesday to begin to really further develop a really great schedule that you're going to see today. And so I want all of you to know that there is no perfect schedule. And there really is no way to address all of your fears and needs because it's so diverse. We have some of you that are so anxious to get back to school, and there are others that are really determining whether or not that's the best option at this point in time. And so this team has done outstanding work and has spent an inordinate amount of time in the last few days to really make sure that all the needs that were raised and the concerns have been addressed as well as we can at this point with the knowledge that we have, the skills that we have. I have to also say that our kindergarten through 8th grade model that we used this fall was highly successful. And we know that because our staff is so diligent and because our leaders are so concerned about student safety and making sure that we always do what's best for kids, I'm confident that you're going to feel this very same way about the model that you're going to hear tonight as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Eric Pace, who's going to get us started this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Barish. As stated, I'm Eric Pace, West Bloomfield High School principal. Good evening, and thank you for taking some time out to join us to hear our revised plan in response to some of the questions and concerns that were raised earlier this week. To reiterate what Mrs. Barish said, we're very excited to be able to see your students here in person in just a couple of short weeks. We know that this has been nearly a calendar year of some pretty disruptive external factors that have had impact on your families, on you personally, on students, on our staff, and on education. And we are really looking forward to being able to bridge some of those gaps and see people in person again. So we want you to hear that we do recognize that a lot of families have different perspective and experience in relation to COVID. Some families have been impacted quite severely, and others not so much. Some students are handling being at home really well and navigating it successfully, others not so much. And we know the drain and the toll that is taken on our families and on our students overall. And those factors were considered when revising our schedule and our plan in order to bring students back safely. After Monday, we heard from you, the community, from our students, our staff, and our school board, and really wanted to address some of the major concerns that were brought up and create an adaptive schedule that hopefully is going to ease some of the anxieties and be the safest and most educationally sound schedule for our students to be in-person instruction. Finally, please know that we understand that our students are going to have physical, emotional, and mental health situations that may pop up. And we are dedicated to providing both in-person and remote supports for all students and families through this transition. So before showing the schedule, which will be the next slide, some of the major concerns that were brought up and are addressed in the schedule. First off was having on-campus lunches for students to be eating in our cafeteria or in school. The new schedule will have grab and go lunch options that'll actually incorporate multiple meals free of charge for all students through June 30th, but they will be taking them off campus to eat. Secondly, we heard that having 3 asynchronous days, which was the previous plan, was not necessarily what our students and families and staff were looking for. The new plan will have students in school 4 days per week and live Zooms, not asynchronous necessarily, but live Zoom on Wednesdays as well, which is the asynchronous days for other buildings. Finally, the biggest struggle with all of this is finding enough instructional minutes for each student as we try to come back safely with less students. So in this new model, it'll be 70 instructional minutes per class per week. Right now we have 100 instructional minutes per class per week on Zoom. However, we will have half the kids. So when you factor that in, we will actually be able to provide more directed and targeted instruction at more minutes per child than you're receiving now via Zoom. So with that, I'd like to share the high school hybrid schedule. And this will mirror or mimic, I guess, because the times aren't exactly the same, what you've seen K-8 in our district. And that is an AM-PM cohort model. And we will walk through and show you exactly what it would look like for a cohort A, which is AM group, and a cohort B, which is a PM group. And then I'll talk to you a little bit how we address those concerns that I just described. So every student will be attending class in person at West Bloomfield High School each day except for Wednesday. And so I will walk through briefly what this sample schedule could look like. I'll use Susie Eisner, our assistant principal, as a model student. Susie, for this example, would be a cohort A individual. So Susie is going to attend classes in the morning beginning at 7:43, and then she'll end at 10:17 with her odd day classes. We will repeat the same thing on Tuesday for even day classes with an option for a support seminar as well. When she's done at 10:17, we have a 85-minute block in the middle of the day for students to get their grab and go meal options, to return home, and then they'll begin on their asynchronous work. Okay, so we will have asynchronous work for students. It'll be more extensive than a typical homework, but it'll be self-paced, self-directed, guided through Canvas by teachers. The difference between that and what you saw on our previous schedule on Monday is this does not occur simultaneously with the other classes. So our staff can now focus all of their attention to the students that are in front of them all of the time. So she'll be done, Susie would be at 10:17, and she'd have the remainder of the day to attend to her asynchronous or her homework for her 4 classes. And again, you'll see those classes on Thursday and Friday that you saw Monday, Tuesday. So instead of having 2 days in school per week and then 3 asynchronous, you now have 4 days in school per week, but less time during the day there to limit exposure and contamination at only 35-minute classes. So an afternoon student would just have a reverse schedule. They would be attend to their asynchronous work in the AM, and then they would begin school at 11:42, ending school at 2:20. So we will be talking about how we're going to cohort students and how we've come up with this plan and how you can share maybe some specific needs with us. Before we get to that, I want to show you kind of broken down to make sure we're very clear on what the schedule looks like. If you are a cohort A individual, your schedule would look like this: 7:43 to 10:17, asynchronous work based on the in-person instruction. Cohort B, same idea, flip to the afternoon. Before we move on, I do want to talk a bit about Wednesdays. In this model, Wednesdays would be a remote day, just as they are district-wide. But instead of being a fully asynchronous day, teachers would run a 7-period marathon schedule, as we'll call it, and each teacher will be available in each of those 7 classes. A student would not have to choose where they go, which you saw in the previous model. They'd have access to all 7 teachers. There would be required Zoom attendance for students that are deemed to be at risk or struggling in that classroom, and the teacher would be able to notify you of that, or any other student who wishes to attend that session live. If they don't want to attend that session live, they can complete the work asynchronously because it will not be new instruction. It will be support, extension, reteaching, things like that to help intervene with students in a very timely manner from the first 2 days of the week before they see them for their next class period. So again, that is fully remote, but full access to all teachers. So one of the other concerns that we heard was what was going to potentially be an inability to maintain 6 feet of distancing. So what we did this yesterday, is we walked around to quite a few classrooms and looked at the furniture that we had in there, the furniture that we have that is extended throughout our building and our pods, our testing furniture, our eye center furniture, things like that that won't be necessarily in use at this time. And we believe we can supplement the furniture in every classroom to provide every student their own table and maintain 6 feet of distancing. What we did yesterday, we had our football players in for practice before their state semifinal game this Saturday against Belleville. And I texted Coach Bellamy and I said, please send me 18 of the largest humans that you have, and we will put them in a classroom to see what it looks like. So we went into one of our Spanish classrooms, which would be an average to maybe slightly below average size in terms of square footage. And they are all maintaining proper distancing, masks on, and we believe that we can maintain a very safe environment inside of our classrooms. And as Ms. Eisner put in the caption, as you can tell, these are 18 smiling students ready and eager to come back in person. So before we continue, I want to introduce Jamie Glynns, our assistant principal, who will be our COVID coordinator in charge of our COVID protocols and kind of the safety measures, and if we do have sick individuals, right, the isolation and quarantine management as well. So Mr. Glynns.
Thank you, Mr. Pace, and welcome everybody tonight. One of the concerns that we heard from all our stakeholders was how we were going to clean the building. So here are some of our cleaning procedures. One, we'll make sure that we have hand sanitizer stations in every classroom. We'll focus on high touch surfaces between cohorts. You can kind of see some of our custodians in the picture and some of the machines that they'll be using. We'll make sure that we hit classrooms and bathrooms with increased frequency and between cohorts. Our facilities management right now are doing dry runs to make sure that they are timing it out so that we can ensure that we can get it done in time. We also plan on minimizing non-students in the building. So guests are required to complete a health questionnaire to enter, and we're going to limit that. One of the things that's not on here as well is Wednesdays, we'll be doing more of a deep clean. And another thing that we'll be focusing on with our staff and our security and our parapros is making sure that students are not congregating around the building. So we know that they'll be excited to come back to school, see their friends, but we are going to make sure that we are in the hallways and kind of moving the students along either to go to their classrooms or leave the building.
Thank you, Mr. Glynns. So for arrival and dismissal, we're going to have Susie Eisner, one of our other assistant principals, walk through what that process is going to look like.
Hi there, good evening. It's exciting for me to be talking to the high school. I'm coming from middle school administration where we have lived this already. And so I know the nervousness and anxiety that families are feeling right now. And I also know the excitement when kids get there, and it does work. It actually does work. And that is why we chose to adopt a model similar to K-8. So we're going to have entrances and hallways monitored by staff and marked for social distancing. And obviously those locations are always monitored, but it's different now because we're going to help students figure out how to interact with that 6 feet difference. We need to cap the beginning and end of our cohorts in terms of when students can be in the building. So students will only be allowed in the building 20 minutes before the start of their cohort and will need to have cleared out of the building within 20 minutes at the end of the cohort. That's so that we can make sure that the building is cleaned, sanitized, and also so that we can be monitoring students to make sure that social distance is kept. And so 10:37 will be the earliest that students can arrive before the afternoon cohort, and they will need to be out of the building by 2:20. For the morning cohort, I'm sorry, our times got left off, but they will need to be there also they will be allowed in 20 minutes before school starts and will need to be off campus within 20 minutes after.
Thank you. Just to reiterate that, we will have staff that's going to help move students along, make sure that they're not congregating in some of our popular areas like the atrium or near the cafeteria or the gym, and getting them shuffled along to classes so they're not in close quarters with one another, or standing around, potentially being less than 6 feet with one another. We do know that passing time was raised as a concern. As you might know, the definition of close contact for this is to be within 6 feet of somebody for 15 minutes or more. So as long as students are expeditious and when they arrive getting to class, we only have 5-minute passing times. The health department is confident that this has not been in any other schools an area of spread of the virus, and we believe that we can prevent that as well. When it comes to the arrival and dismissal, we do need your help. The high school is a place of community and a belonging and a place that we want our students to be. However, we can't have students lingering around for long periods of time after their cohort is finished. We do not want mixing of students between the cohorts while we're in school, and we definitely don't want them there when the next cohort begins. So we will have to be diligent in making sure that students are picked up and taken home. And then hopefully at that point in time, we can continue to maintain safety and distancing without an abundance of students that are remaining in the building. Transportation, we will be providing busing, but it will be an opt-in situation. So families at the end of this, we're going to share a Google form, and it will, every family will need to fill one out, and you'll be able to opt into transportation as a part of that form. We are encouraging our drivers to obtain a parking permit and to drive to school. Typically, this is not open to 16-year-old sophomores. It will be open to 16-year-old sophomores this year. With the cohort model, we will have less students on campus at once, and we should have plenty of space to accommodate that. Very soon, we will be sending out separately information on how to obtain a parking pass, and there will be a significantly discounted rate for early purchase, hoping that we can encourage families to take advantage of that. When it comes to busing, please know that there are fewer students per bus. They've been busing already at the elementary and middle schools, and all safety protocols must still occur. So mask wearing is required at all times, just as it will be in the building. We will have consistent bus seating so that we can contact trace if necessary, and all buses are disinfected between each route. And I apologize, I don't know what that is. Okay. We got a new computer today and random things are popping up. Okay. For pickup and drop off, we are going to be using our usual drop off and pickup system, which is in the main lot at the bottom of the concrete stairs. But if you need to pick a student up during school, you may pick up in the front north loop, but you will not be permitted to enter the building. We are limiting visitors and restricting visitors at all times. If a family member needs to come in the building to drop something off, we can have them buzzed in at the front door, and we will be conducting a health questionnaire in order to permit access and drop those items off. But please know we will not be having visitors in the building. Food services. As I mentioned earlier, all students will have access to free breakfast and lunch through June 30th, regardless of income. It'll be provided twice per week. There will be frozen options, so it lasts about an hour before they get home, and it should last you until the next pickup day, I guess, at the school. These will be available at the end of each cohort every day at the exits on the way out the door. No food will be allowed to be consumed on campus. However, a student may have a water bottle. Our drinking fountains will be closed. They are currently completely taped off and not usable, but we do have multiple bottle filling stations. So a student may have their water bottle and they may fill it up, and that's the only time for a brief moment they may remove their mask, take a drink, and put it back on. We do encourage them to do this when they are away from others, right? And they are distanced and not in the hallway as they're passing or near anybody. So again, I want to reiterate, with mask wearing, masks will be required at all times while they're in the building. They're there for a shorter day, and we believe that all students, they've done it at elementary and middle school, will be able to keep their masks on through the duration of the day and their ride home. For our ninth graders and our new students, some of this is still a little flexible, but we do plan to hold orientation options so that you can get to see the building and find your classes and get to know your way around before the general population of the building arrives. So ninth grade, we'll be looking at Monday and Tuesday, January 25th and 26th, which are going to be non-instructional days. You will have some asynchronous work to do for what's called Zello, your career cruising, as part of your IDP and graduation requirement. But we want to get the building open for students that want to get themselves comfortable. New students, we'll be hoping to extend the same opportunity to you on Wednesday, January 27th, and then we'll be starting in-person instruction on January 28th. Purpose of this would be obviously to acclimate to a new environment, find out where and how you can access supports if needed, get you a copy of a map, show you where the maps are in the building, and then, tell you kind of the tips and tricks to getting yourself around. It is a large building, but the layout is such that 90% of the classrooms are all in one location, and it's really a big rectangle. So once you get around it a few times, it's something that's pretty easy to navigate. And now I'm going to have Lynn Swerhone, our school mental health specialist, talk about health and wellness.
Thank you, Mr. Pace. So this will be an adjustment for everyone, right? It's been a long time since we were in school, and this is going to feel different than regular school. So your student may experience increased anxiety, mixed emotions, feeling like things are strange. They may experience disappointment. Because this will be different than regular school. So there won't be lunches, there won't be the same gathering in the hallways or being in close quarters with other students. Your students might be frustrated that they may not be in the same cohort as their friends. But again, there won't be that mixing during the day. So it's going to feel odd for everyone, and it will be an adjustment. If your student needs or wants additional emotional support, your counselors are here to help resources and to provide that support. So in addition to scheduling and college questions, your counselors are also here to get to know and to support your student. So that's what they're here for as well. And it might take some time to get used to things. So remember to be patient and take things one day at a time. And it may be overwhelming at first. So we've all been more isolated than usual. And it may be sensory overload in some ways when we get back. People being in a different environment. So your student may also be more tired than usual. If you notice anything unusual or you're worried at all, when in doubt, reach out is my corny catchphrase down there. So reach out if you feel like you need anything or you have any concerns. And that's it.
Thank you, Lynn. So as we talked about earlier, family and student partnership is going to be important at this, but also a family student partnership with siblings in the district. And we're going to talk about that as well. So first off, what the support that we need from you is that we really need students to be able to be picked up at the end of their cohort and not arrive early. Attending assigned cohort, attending school is going to be very important to make sure we can do this safely, and then we can do this in a way that we can continue educating students in person. So please observe the building hours that you see. Masks must be worn over nose and mouth at all times. We will not be serving food, and no food will be available on campus to be eaten, so masks must be on. I already talked about water bottles, but as a reminder, those are permitted as long as students are doing those safely and respectfully. And then maintaining social distancing at all times. We're confident we can maintain that within the classroom setting, but we are going to rely on students and the adults that are supervising to help support that in hallway situations. The PM cohort time you'll see there as a typo, it should say 2:20 is the end of school, 2:40 is when they need to be gone by. It just says 12:40, but you do have to be off campus by 2:40. Finally, I know Lynn just described it, be patient. There's going to be an adjustment for all of us, and it's going to be different. It's going to feel a little weird. It might not feel like school as it's always been. There will be an adjustment period, but that's okay. We will get to a point of comfort, and I truly believe that with more minutes per student in the smaller classes and being in person, we're going to see quite an impact on their education. And then if you do have concerns, please make sure that you share them. Just do so respectfully. We'll have an opportunity in the form that you'll see at the end for any feedback and questions you might have. So please make sure you reach out to us if those are present. So to talk about how we're going to cohort students in a different type of family and community partnership, I have Dr. Griffin, our other assistant principal, who's going to talk through that process.
Good evening, everyone. So for cohorting, the primary goal here is to make sure that students are safely distanced in classrooms. And in order to do that, we have to put students into two cohorts, cohort A or cohort B. Another primary function of cohorting is to make sure that we are aligning with the middle school model, and we're trying to keep siblings in the same cohort. We will take into consideration specialty programming, and we will make sure that the cohorts are assigned based on all the parameters given above, but also to make sure that we are maintaining the class sizes that we're looking forward to, which is around 18 students. Also, you should know that we are actively working on this now and through next week. So you'll have your cohort assignment out to you via email Monday, January 25th.
Thank you, Dr. Griffin. So I know on Monday we heard that we were going to attempt to split by address, but that was on an alternating day schedule. Now that we're going to be doing AM PM, which is the same as our K-8 model, we want to make sure families have the option to have all siblings or anybody living in the home to be on the same cohort if you want. We did hear feedback that some people don't want their kids at home at the same time. And so you'll have an option to let us know that as well. So please don't email us a cohort request at this time because we're still in the process of even creating how we're going to do it. Once it's done, we'll have those emailed out to you. And then it'll be tweaked here and there to make sure that we're maintaining balancing, but that will be the number one factor, is to look at classroom capacity and make sure that we can socially distance appropriately. All right, so before we go on to the Google form for our next step that everybody's going to need to complete, Ms. Barish, did you have anything you'd like?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Pace. So I want to thank the high school team for all their work and their explanation tonight. So hopefully we will make this available. So this will be on our website. We'll make sure that we send out both a link to this presentation, the actual webinar, and then also just a link to the presentation so you can take a look at the schedule. We are going to ask that each of you complete this form. And so we're going to walk through this with you again, and I'm sure you're rolling your eyes, and Ms. Eisner is going to say the same thing because, yeah, we're going to ask you to do another Google form in order to capture the information. I just want to really be sure you're clear about something as you get ready to complete this form. Probably within just a few minutes or so after the presentation Monday evening, both Mr. Pace and myself had many emails with requests to move to Lakers Online. And we really have not replied to those emails because we wanted to make sure that you've been able to see this presentation and the new schedule that we have in place. And I need you to understand that we asked you to make a decision, and knowing that schedule does not look like what we talked about in November when we asked you to decide, we staffed, however, Lakers Online based on those decisions and that information that we had at the time. We are really only going to take changes and moves to Lakers Online for those students and families who have demonstrated medical need. We will not be able to accommodate it otherwise. And that's a variety of factors. We might have 100 students who request to move to Lakers Online, but they're from a variety of grade levels who are taking a variety of courses, and we just don't have room or the staff to be able to move from West Bloomfield High School to Lakers Online, which would mean that your child might have the majority of their classes as Edgenuity. So not contact with a West Bloomfield teacher and really having just an online platform only. So we know that sometimes it's frustrating and that we can't necessarily meet every individual student need. Again, we're confident that this schedule is going to be rigorous, that it's going to be engaging for your child, that it's going to be safe to have them back in the building and provide quality instruction. Only if there's a demonstrated, albeit documented with a doctor's note, medical need from a family member or that child, will we consider being able to make that move to Lakers Online. So please understand we're trying to always be accommodating and to do whatever we can to help our families. But we want you to understand that this really is we're really tight to get things ready to go to start the next semester, and we really staff based on the information that we had in November. So please take some time tonight as you're completing your Google form and realize that this team has done an excellent job and is fully prepared to welcome your kids back to West Bloomfield High School. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Eisner, who's going to walk us through the form.
Okay, so I have to admit that I volunteered to do the form because I'm hoping to finally sleep. We really haven't slept since Monday because we have been working so hard to kind of synthesize all the information that you gave us and put together a plan that we felt was appropriate. And so I'm going to complete it for my daughter. Mr. Pace is going to scribe for me. I think it's important to note that it's going to take us some time to process all of these. right? It's 1,700 students, and we are going to take some time to process them. So, okay, Mr. Pace. Susan Eisner. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to need is obviously parent information. So Susan Eisner. Thank you. And again, an email. And the reason that we have that is because one logs it for the system and one logs it for us. My daughter's name is Maya. Last name goes on the next line is Eisner. Okay. She is going to love. Please don't tell her that I'm doing this in front of all of you. She is a 10th grader. We do not have somebody living in the house, but we're going to mark yes so that you can see that part of the form. So what we want to do is give you the opportunity, if you want to cohort together, to do that. So I'm going to use Mr. Pace's sons, or, oh, there you go. You can use, and Daniel Eisner. Okay. And we're going to pick 2 grades for them. Okay. And then we're going to mark what schools they're in. And again, you can mark multiple boxes because if they're in multiple schools, we want to be able to align that. And if you have 2 kids at the high school and nobody at another building, we want to make sure that if you want those kids in the same cohort, that we can do that. Okay. Then you're going to let us know if your child is, you have a student at Doherty, a student at Chico, and a student at West Bloomfield Middle School, and they are all on cohort B, you're going to let us know that. B would be the afternoon, A would be the morning, and then you're going to let us know if you want us to cohort them together. I'm going to cohort them together. And again, we are going to do our absolute best to accommodate you. I have watched the webinar. And this final piece talks about, right, our expectation is that 95, 96% of families are obviously a little bit relieved to see this plan as opposed to the original plan. They've heard the successes at the elementary buildings. They've made the commitment to West Bloomfield High School, and they're going to check the top box. That they're looking forward to sending their student for in-person learning starting on 1/28. We do understand that there are some families that have some medical issues and that may not have been there previously and that need us to look at that unique circumstances. So I'm going to have you click that, Mr. Pace. Okay. For those families that do have a medical issue that has arisen recently, we're going to ask you to explain what that issue is, and then there's an opportunity for you to provide documentation. It's going to take a couple weeks to get through all of this because our primary task right now is cohorting, and we will look at the appeals after. So whether you've applied for an appeal or not, all students will start in their assigned school. And you're going to end up giving us about 3 weeks. I think we said 4 in the form, but our goal is 3 weeks to get through them all. The final question is busing. You have to opt in. If you don't opt in, you will not receive district busing. I am going to have busing because my daughter doesn't want anybody to know that she knows me. And then if you have any further questions, you can put them there and one of us will get back to you.
All right, so that was the form. When you complete it, whatever email address you put in, you will receive a copy of your response sent directly to that email. That way you have confirmation that it went through. If you don't receive one, make sure you check your spam or your filters to make sure that email wasn't blocked. We've ran numerous test runs on this, both from WBSD.org emails and personal emails, and all have worked. So you should receive that response. So with that, we are going to post this webinar, both the recording and the slides to our website. And then we will make the form live for all of you as soon as we have that webinar link, because we're going to embed it in for those that haven't watched. And we really need those responses as soon as possible. In order for us to get cohorts to you by Monday, the 25th, we'd like to have these responses hopefully by the end of the day tomorrow, but at the latest by Monday. And we will put that in the email when we push this out to families. So again, we appreciate your patience, your concern, your questions, your comments, your feedback, and also your trust. My own students, my own children are in the district, and they will be returning to in-person instruction soon. And I'm confident that the plan that we have in place here at West Bloomfield High School is one that can keep our students as safe as possible and also get us back to in-person instruction. So with that, we will leave you. Have a wonderful evening, and we look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you.